Welcome back, friends. This is Dr. Sangram Patil. Part 2 of the chapter on environment in your year 10 CBSE book. If you haven't watched part 1 video, it's available on the channel, so please go through that as well. So in part 2, we'll start with this activity that's given in your book. It asks you to consider the aquarium design again. While creating an aquarium, did you take care not to put an aquatic animal which would eat each other, which would eat other animals? What would have happened otherwise? So obviously, if you are making an aquarium, then you have to put animals in that aquarium that do not feed on each other, and if you do so, then the small animals will be eaten up by the big fish, and that big fish will be eaten up by a bigger one. So that will be a mistake, and that will spoil the whole idea of keeping a long-lasting aquarium at home. Second point here, make group and discuss how each of the above groups of organisms are dependent on each animal. So we've seen in the last lecture as well, and I'll take you through again. In an aquarium, you can make it as a completely artificially fed type of aquarium, where you are feeding the fish and then clearing the water, cleaning the aquarium regularly, and sending oxygen through the oxygenator or aerator. Or you can use some plants in the aquarium that will generate some food, generate oxygen, take away carbon dioxide, take away the ammonia and nitrates that are produced. So depending on which type of aquarium you're making, the cycle, the food chain will depend on that. So they want us to consider what organisms are dependent on, how the organisms are dependent on each other in the aquarium. So I've shown you in the last lecture as well. If you are making an aquarium that is self-sustaining, you can have some plants that will perform photosynthesis, generate oxygen, and remove the carbon dioxide, remove nitrates and the ammonia that is generated from the activity of the fish. And that's how it can be a self-sustaining in terms of food. And the oxygen produced can partially reduce the need of oxygen from the aerator or oxygen pump. So this is how the cycle will be maintained. But if you have, say, different organisms that feed on others, then you can consider the natural type of ecosystem where phytoplankton that will synthesize their own food, they will be eaten up by the zooplankton. These are small creatures. They'll be eaten up by small fish that will be eaten up by the medium size, the large size, and the larger size fish. So that will be a kind of flow of energy, and green plants will act as producers. They will capture the energy from the sun, and they will convert it into chemical energy of food. The herbivores will feed on the plants, so energy made by these plants will be transferred to the herbivores, and then that will go to the carnivores, and carnivores will there will be chain of carnivores, one depending on other for the energy. And this is how the ecosystem exists in the lake or in the sea. But in aquarium, the ecosystem will be simple. If you have plants and the small fish and the large fish, or plants and the small zooplankton kind of organisms, small animals, and the fish, so you will have the aquatic chain of aquarium, very short aquatic chain. But for the aquatic organisms that live in natural habitat, the chain could be big one. So they have asked you to fill in at least three steps. So you can put any of these steps there. you can make more steps than 3. Yeah, so phytoplankton, zooplankton, small fish, fish of the size of mackerel, and then snapper fish, these are the bigger ones, and the large shark, they feed on these smaller ones. So that's the activity. And would you consider any one group of organisms to be of primary importance? Why and why not? So in ecosystem, actually all the organisms are important, okay? And if one is removed, then that will disturb the ecosystem. So all are important, but the producers are more important. Remember, we've seen producers, consumers, and decomposers, okay? So any ecosystem will have producers, that is green plants or blue-green algae. Then we have consumers, and different types of consumers, starting from herbivores to carnivores to others. And you have decomposers, these are bacteria and fungi, okay? Decomposers. So let's move on now. So before we move, let me make this more simple. So first step of the aquatic organism, who eats whom, will be plant. Second will be small insect or larva, and third will be fish, okay, just to make it simple. So green plants producers are of the primary importance. I just explained you, because the green plants will have ability to capture the solar energy and convert it into chemical energy, and all the other organisms, all the consumers and decomposers will rely on green plants, and then on the smaller animals, as we have already seen, okay? So the next topic in your book is about food chains and webs. We have seen from the above activity that a series of organisms feeding on each other, this series of organisms taking part at various biotic levels, they form the food chain, okay? So that's food chain. Each step or the level of food chain forms a trophic level, okay? Trophic level, okay? Each step is called trophic level. The autotrophs, okay, that produce their own food, or the producers, are the first trophic level. So that's the first trophic level. They fix the solar energy and make it available for heterotrophs, that is consumers. The herbivores, that is insects and larvae, are the primary consumers. They come at the second. Small carnivores are the secondary consumers at the third, and large carnivores, tertiary consumers form the fourth trophic level. So this diagram is important actually. These are the producers, so first trophic level. Then the herbivores that feed on producers, on the plants, that's the second level. Small carnivores will be third level, and large carnivores will be fourth level, okay? So these are the trophic levels, and I explain you there again. So trophic levels, first trophic level is autotrophs or producers. Then the consumers. The second trophic level is primary consumer. The third trophic level is secondary consumer. The fourth trophic level is tertiary consumers. So that's producer, that is autotroph or plants. Then primary consumer, these are herbivores. And the secondary and tertiary consumers are the small carnivores and large carnivores, okay? Large carnivores. So these are the trophic levels: first trophic, second trophic, third trophic, and fourth trophic level with different organisms. And the same thing is explained in this diagram as well. Have a look at this diagram. It's given in your CBSE book. Okay, so we know that food we eat acts as a fuel to provide us energy to do the work. Okay, and the food energy is captured from basically from the solar energy, and it is transferred to the next level, next tropic level. The interaction among various components of the environment involve flow of energy. Okay, so energy flows at different levels, from the sun to the producer to the different tropic levels. This energy supports all the activities of the living world. From autotrophs, the energy goes to the heterotrophs and then decomposers. However, as we saw in the chapter called Sources of Energy, or you may not have gone through yet, when one form of energy is changed to another form, some energy gets lost. Okay, and this lost energy cannot be recovered. This cannot be reused again. The flow of energy between various components of environment can be explained in a simple way. The green plants, okay, so if you look at this food chain, so these are the three food chains. The one is from forest, okay, this is from grassland, and this one is from the pond. So the energy from the sun comes to the green plants first. Okay, and if you look at the green plants in a terrestrial ecosystem, terrestrial is the one that is on the land, they capture about 1% of the energy of sunlight that falls on their leaves, and they convert this 1% into energy, food energy. When the green plants are eaten by primary consumers, okay, the energy is transferred to them, but some amount of energy is lost as a heat to the environment. So there is a loss of energy. When the plants are eaten up by the primary consumer, there is a loss of energy to the environment. Some energy is used for digestion, to do the work, and rest of the energy is used by these organisms for growth and reproduction. So average 10% of the food eaten is turned into its own body and made available for the next level of consumers. Okay, so 1% of the solar energy is used by the plants. 10% of the food that primary consumers eat is available for the next level, next tropic level, next level of consumers. Therefore, 10% can be taken as an average value for the amount of organic matter that is present at each step and reaches the next level of consumers. So only 10% of the energy is transferred is available for the next level. Okay, so it's a very interesting concept. Understand this properly. Since little energy is available for the next level, 10% is very little out of 100. Food chain generally consists of only 3 or 4 steps. I've just shown you. The food chain has only got 3 to 4 steps because the energy goes on decreasing. So less energy is available at the higher level, higher tropic level. Okay? And it cannot be reused. It cannot be written back to the lower level. Okay? So there are generally greater number of individuals at lower tropic level of the ecosystem. The greatest number is at the producer level, and the number goes on reducing as the tropic level increases. So producers will be higher in number, and the number of further organisms will go on reducing as the trophic level increases. Okay, the length, so there will be greatest number of producers available in any ecosystem. The length and the complexity of food chain varies greatly. Each organism is generally eaten by two or more other kinds of organisms, which in turn are eaten by several other organisms. So instead of a straight line, we have actually a food chain that looks like this. So we have the maximum number of producers, but producer is written by the primary consumer. The primary consumer can be eaten by more than one organisms. Okay, so if you look at these chains, here is a producer, that's a primary consumer, but it's eaten by 1, 2 and 3 organisms. Okay, and they are further eaten by more than one organisms. So the food chain is not always a straight line. It's not always a straight line. Okay, it is more a branching tree. Okay, so the relationship is usually shown as a series of branching lines, and this a series of branching lines is called as food web. Okay, web means a network. So this is a food web. So remember this. So just to recap again, the autotrophs capture the energy present in sunlight, convert it into chemical, that goes to the heterotrophs and decomposers. When one form of energy is changed to another, some energy is lost to the environment in the form which cannot be used again, and the energy goes on reducing. So only 10% energy is available for the next level, trophic level, to consume. So this diagram again, energy flow diagram, can be showed in a simple manner how the energy flows. So sunlight sends 100% to the producers only use 1% of it, and then that's eaten by herbivores. They only transfer 10% energy to further level, 10% to the further level, and the least energy is available at the top carnivores level. The maximum energy is available at the producer level and the primary consumer level after that. Okay, so this is the energy flow diagram of the ecosystem, right? So now from energy flow diagram, there are two things that we can derive. Firstly, the flow of energy is unidirectional. So it's only in one direction. There is no reverse direction. The energy that is captured by the autotrophs does not revert back to the sun. Energy which is passed to the herbivores does not come back to the autotrophs. Okay? It moves progressively through various trophic levels, and it is not available for the previous level. Understand this principle. It's a one-way direction. It's a unidirectional. Okay? Now, next concept in this is the food chain is unknowingly there are some harmful chemicals that enter our body, the body of the organism in the food chain, and these harmful chemicals, how does the ecosystem get polluted with them? One of the reason for this is the use of pesticides and other chemicals that farmers use to protect crops from diseases and pests. So these chemicals are either washed down into the soil or into the water resources. From the soil, these are absorbed by the plants along with water and mineral. Okay, so they get absorbed in the plants. This is one of the ways in which they enter the food chain. As these chemicals are not degradable, these get accumulated progressively at each trophic level. So these are transferred from plants, from the producers to the different trophic levels, and they get accumulated. And progressively the concentration goes on increasing. As the human being occupies the top level in the food chain, the maximum concentration of these chemicals is observed in our bodies, and this is called as biomagnification. Okay, the process of biological magnification or biomagnification. So this diagram shows that the smaller producers like algae, they have very little pesticide or chemical content. Okay, then they are eaten up by zooplankton, that is small larvae or insects. They have higher concentration in their bodies of chemicals and pesticides. Then the small carnivores, small fish, have even higher. The medium-sized carnivores or large-sized carnivores have much higher concentration of the chemicals and pesticides, and human being, we have more concentration in our body. So this process is called as biological magnification or biomagnification of chemical through the food chain. So very important concept, and this phenomena explains why we get the toxic effects of pesticides and chemicals through the vegetables as well as the animal products such as wheat, rice, fruits, vegetables, meat. They contain various residues of pesticides, and it's not always possible to remove them just by simple washing. Okay, so your book wants us to go through another activity, and let's go through that now. So they want you to go through newspaper reports about pesticide levels in ready-made food items are often seen these days. So we do see these reports, and some states have banned these products. Debate in groups the need for such bans. So do we need to ban the ready-made food or food products that are available that contain high levels of pesticide? Obviously yes, we need to ban, don't we? So the pesticide containing food products should be banned. What do you think would be the source of pesticide in these food items? Could pesticides get into our bodies from this source through other food products too? So let's go through the more details of this question. So the pesticides can enter into our body through inhalation when it is being used, being sprayed, or ingestion when we eat the fruits and vegetables that are sprayed with pesticides, or the animals, when human being eats fish or other animals that have been fed on the stuff that is contaminated with pesticide or chemicals. They can also enter through the skin contact or through the eyes or the nose. Okay, so these are different routes of entry of the pesticides that can come to us through the food, through inhalation, through the contact, or through consumption of the packed food. And we need to be aware of how much content of pesticide pollution is there with the food we eat. and depending on that, if there is a heavy contamination of certain ready-made food products, then they can be banned by the governments. So what do we do to reduce the pesticide exposure, and why should we worry about the pesticides? So that's the next slide. The routes of exposure, occupational, such as in farmers when they inhale or get in contact. Accidental spill can happen in the shops, industries, or again in farmers farming locations. Yeah, so and the food that we eat can expose us to the pesticide products, polluted products. Now, how do they harm us? So they damage our genes, they damage our cells, they damage the enzymes that are involved in different reactions in the body, and they can disturb the metabolic reactions in the body. And what effects do they cause? So they can damage our endocrine systems, they can be carcinogenic, that means they can cause cancers, hepatotoxic, that is liver toxicity, cytotoxic, that is toxic to the cell, neurotoxic, that is toxic to the brain, toxic to the reproductive system, they can affect the growth, that is developmental system, and teratogenic, again they can produce different types of cancers, that is the word teratogenic. Okay, so how can we reduce exposure to the pesticides and other harmful chemicals? So we can reduce or stop using the pesticides, chemical pesticides, and instead use the more natural organic manure or biopesticides that will result in organic production of organic food. We don't use the packed food items or that have more pesticide or chemical content. Use more fruits, vegetables, and organic products in our diet. We wash the fruits and vegetables thoroughly with water before we use them for making food. And we can also ban or reduce the production of these chemicals, pesticides, and switch to more organic farming. So these are the different ways in which we can reduce exposure to pesticides and harmful chemicals. So guys, the next topic will be covered in part 3, that is the last part of this chapter. First part is available on the channel. This is the second one, and I will cover the environmental effects of our activities, including the ozone and its effects, the various regulations that are available for control of the environment and protection of ozone layer and global warming, that is Montreal Protocol. That will be included, and we'll also go through the topics such as garbage management and the different types of garbages and how they are managed, including the management of industrial waste and recycling of the electronic items, that is e-waste recycling, and we'll talk about also in the end about plastic recycling. So these will be covered in the next part. So take care, and I'll see you soon in part 3 of the environment chapter of your CBSE 10th. Take care. Bye.